If you got one of these, you'll notice the needs. Lots of people to pray for. If you haven't got one, there's one in the foyer when you leave. And thinking about the various needs and those to pray for, I thought, what better way for us to learn about prayer than the prayer life of Christ himself and some things he prayed for and people that he prayed for. Turn to Luke chapter 5 with me. In Luke chapter 5, just to set the stage a little bit, beginning at verse 21, look at how they were talking behind Jesus' back. And he knew this, and imagine if you were Jesus, would you be hurt that you came to this earth and you gave up so much and that you care about these people who are so stubborn, who don't believe in you, who are conspiring against you, who doubt you and your power, and yet he prays for them. In Luke chapter 5 and verse 21, the Scribes and Pharisees began to reason, saying, "Who is this which speaketh blasphemies? Who can forgive sins but God alone?" They didn't understand who Jesus was, and yet he cared for them. And in verse 30, but their scribes and Pharisees murmured against his disciples, saying, "Why do ye eat and drink with publicans and sinners?" They didn't understand why he spent time with people who were involved in things that were wrong. Why is he doing this? And then verse 33, they said unto him, "Why do the disciples of John fast often and make prayers, and likewise the disciples of the Pharisees, but thine eat and drink?" Jesus broke from the norms of other people. You couldn't put Jesus in a box and make him conform to what everybody else was doing, because he didn't operate that way. And so they criticized him for the things that he did that was different than others. Chapter 6, verse 2, certain of the Pharisees said unto them, "Why do ye that which is not lawful to do on the Sabbath days?" They accused him falsely of breaking the Sabbath when he was healing people, which is not a breaking of the Sabbath. Verse 11, they were filled with madness. Some of your translations may say fury or rage. They're angry. Why are they so angry at Jesus? It says they communed with one another what they might do to Jesus. But while they were talking against him, what was Jesus doing? In the very next verse, he was talking with the Father. In verse 12 of Luke 6, "And it came to pass in those days that he went out into a mountain to pray, and continued all night in prayer to God." The Son of God, who is perfect, prayed. How much more you're in my need to pray? You think about that. If Jesus prayed, what did he pray about? Who did he pray for? What kind of concerns did he have? And when he prayed for the people, what did he say in that prayer? I wish I could have heard the content, but we can only think. But the next verse tells us things that are going on in verse 13. "When it was day, he called unto him his disciples, and of them he chose 12, whom also he named apostles." So he continued all night in prayer while these others are conspiring against him. But he was also about to choose the apostles. What you reckon the content of some of his prayers that night pertained to the people he was choosing to serve him? You think that would forever change the lives of these men, their families. Yes, they would be blessed. Yes, these men would be honored, but it would cost these men. I wonder if that was on the Lord's mind whenever He prayed all night for these men. Every one of these men would die, claiming they saw Jesus, had been with Him, heard His teachings. They wrote things about Him. They died for Him. Every one of them were persecuted. And all died of the persecution, according to secular history, except for John. He was persecuted, though. But every one of them suffered for His name. Every one of them had to give up some things. Had to deal with some hunger. Had to deal with some jail time. They had to deal with the challenges that if others are conspiring against Jesus, then these men are claiming to follow Jesus. These men would have similar troubles. What about their wives? What about their children? And how this would affect them? What about their courage? What about their own struggles, their own temptations? They were men who stumbled. We've got examples of some of them and the mistakes they made. And so, yes, He prayed for them. And one thing that I learned from that is, if Jesus prayed before choosing His apostles, and He has all wisdom, then how much more important was it for us to pray in appointing elders? And that we are praying and appointing deacons? Before making major life decisions, to pray, to give the consideration. Is this going to honor God? Are these people going to honor God? They need help. They need strength. I am sure, though, when you pray for people and your brethren, that it draws you closer to them. Helps you be mindful of them and realize that you're not the only one that have needs and struggles. One brother that I know, that when he would pray, said that he could, when he laid down at night, he would visualize where people sat in the auditorium. And so, for example, he would start over here, start naming the brethren that sat in their places. I suppose you could do that. Sorry if we move around, if that messes up that. But if it helps you to think of the people, name them by name. If you have time, name some of their specific things that they're dealing with and they're struggling with. But he said what would happen is he sometimes would fall asleep halfway through. So to make sure he didn't leave anybody out, the next night he would start over here and go down and pray for them. It's a good practice. That might be a way that you might try to think about others. And you know, whenever you think about your brethren, I think you're less likely to hold animosity. You're less likely that even if there are situations where sometimes as a family we can do things that may annoy one another or frustrate each other. Sometimes we disappoint each other because we're human. Maybe we're, brethren let each other down sometimes. Sometimes we neglect each other. Sometimes we are not as thoughtful in our words and our actions as we should be. But when you have this act of praying for each person, it helps make us more caring, more loving, less likely to sow discord, less likely to gossip, less likely to hold some kind of grudge or some kind of bad feeling towards a brother too long. To let go of that. Maybe even if we get angry, not to let the sun go down on our wrath. And so I encourage you to think and pray and name your brethren and your sisters by name. Jesus did that. Jesus prayed all night before choosing the disciples, and so I learned about that. Compare with Luke chapter 10 for a moment. In verse 2, Jesus said, Therefore said he unto them, The harvest truly is great, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he would send forth laborers into his harvest. Jesus practiced before he preached it. He was praying for the laborers that he was sending. And when he's telling us, pray for them. Pray for your elders. Pray for your future deacons. Pray for the preacher. Pray for those who are working, that we don't get distracted and lose the focus. There's a lot of things there, the balance, that there's needs of, there are those who are new in the faith, who need first principles, who need to be solid in their faith, learn basic Bible principles, but then there are those who've been in the faith for a while who need meat, need more solid food, and so there's varying needs. That's hard to know, to think about what everybody needs and to be able to do that. If you've ever found yourself saying, I didn't need that sermon today, I already heard that before. Well, there are multiple people with needs, and you probably did need that to be refreshed. We forget. Preaching is not an easy thing to do as far as knowing what needs to be taught and when and the timing and how it's said and so that it can be heard in the best way. And the preacher himself needs to be preached to, and there are things that a preacher may struggle with himself, but yet the word needs to be preached. So yes, pray for the wisdom, pray for the boldness, pray for the courage to say what needs to be said and not hold it back. Pray for the listeners. Pray for the word to have free course. Paul asked for that. He said, pray for me that I may have boldness. And when he said that, he was in jail when he said that. Might he had the temptation to say, okay, maybe I shouldn't be preaching as boldly. Look where it got me. And so he needed courage to continue to proclaim the word faithfully. And so yes, the Lord prayed for his disciples. But not only did he pray for these apostles, the 12, he also prayed for all his believers. In John chapter 17, I'd like for you to look at this as we go through this together, and as I read, I'd like for you to consider and think about the love behind the prayer. The love Jesus had for his Father. See if you can feel the relationship that he had with his Father. How he respected him. He wanted to honor him. He was in submission to him and wanted to obey him even when it was difficult. But also see his love for the people he's praying for. And how that he wanted them to love each other in the same way. And also see how that he wanted their salvation. Look for that as we read this together. And not only did he want them to be in unity together, he prayed for their protection against temptation. And that he wanted them also to have the joy that they should have in the hope as Christians. Look for that. John 17, verse 1. These words spake Jesus, and lifted up his eyes to heaven, and said, Father, the hour is come. Glorify thy Son, that thy Son also may glorify thee, as thou hast given him power over all flesh, that he should give eternal life to as many as thou hast given him. And this is life eternal, that they might know thee, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom thou hast sent. I have glorified thee on the earth. I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. And now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was. I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. Thine they were, and thou gavest them me, and they have kept thy word. Now they have known that all things whatsoever thou hast given me are of thee. For I have given unto them the words which thou gavest me. And they have received them, and have known surely that I came out from thee. And they have believed that thou didst send me. I pray for them. I pray not for the world, but for them which thou hast given me, for they are thine. And all mine are thine, and thine are mine. And I am glorified in them. And now I am no more in the world, but these are in the world. And I come to thee. Holy Father, keep through thine own name those whom thou hast given me, that they may be one as we are. While I was with them in the world, I kept them in thy name. Those that thou gavest me I have kept, and none of them is lost but the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. And now come I to thee. And these things I speak in the world, that they might have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them thy word. And the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. As thou hast sent me into the world, even so have I also sent them into the world. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they also might be sanctified through the truth. Neither pray I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their word, that they all may be one, as thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. And the glory which thou gavest me I have given them, that they may be one, even as we are one. I in them, and thou in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that thou hast sent me, and hast loved them, and thou hast loved me. Father, I will that they also, whom thou hast given me, be with me where I am, that they may behold my glory which thou hast given me. For thou lovest me before the foundation of the world. O righteous Father, the world hath not known thee, but I have known thee. And these have known that thou hast sent me. And I have declared unto them thy name, and I will declare it, that the love wherewith thou hast loved me may be in them, and I in them. No doubt they would need each other, wouldn't they? The disciples would need each other as they faced trials and temptations, persecution. What an amazing task to take the gospel that Jesus is about to fulfill and take that into all of these places where it had not been told, and into dangerous places where they would be ridiculed, mocked, and tortured for their faith. But he wants the message known. He knows his time is about up. Do we know some of these things? Do we know how long we have left on this earth? How much time do you have? What are you going to do with the rest of your time? And what's it going to be about? And what's the most important thing? And what is it if it's not for us to be loving each other and taking the message of the gospel to those who haven't heard it, lifting up the fallen, helping them to stay strong, and helping others who have not known the love of the Lord, showing them. Showing them by the way we love each other. That's how the world's going to know that we are His disciples. And that's how we're going to be able to make the gospel more effective by what we do. You can say to people all day long certain words, but when they see the love, when they see that you actually care, now they're ready to hear the message of the gospel in a better way. There's something about these people that's different. There's something about these people that's not just words that they're quoting. It's not like a memorized speech. It's not just a show. These people are genuine in their concern for what God says. They have a joy that even in the middle of their losses, that they are focused on heaven and not... How is it that they can think about heavenly things and be thankful whenever things are taken away from them? How is that? There must be something with these people in their faith. Do people see that in us whenever we do that? So yes, the Lord prayed for them. You and I are in that prayer when He prayed. If you noticed it, not only the disciple, the 12, but also for others who would believe through their word. If you believe in their word, He prayed for you. You ever thought about that the Lord prayed for you? He prayed for Peter. You have that in Luke 22. He told Peter, you're going to deny me, but I've prayed for you. You ever thought that the Lord, you ever considered it that way, that the Lord may be in heaven right now talking to the Father about you? If you think nobody cares about me, nobody cares about my situation, you have no idea. The Lord cares. He's praying for those who were persecuting Him, who were talking about Him, who killed Him. He was praying for them. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So yes, He's praying for those whose attitudes are wrong. He's praying for those who are stubborn. He's praying for those who are so cruel to Him. And so when He taught, pray for your enemies, pray for those who curse you, pray for those who despitefully use you, say all manner of evil against you falsely for my name's sake. When He preached that, He practiced what He preached. Do you care about the people who are even doing you wrong? Jesus did. That's what He was about. Yes, we can learn about His prayers. We don't have the time to talk about His prayer in the garden. His prayer while on the cross. Lord, into your hands I commit my spirit. You see His trust in His most difficult time. And you see how that He didn't always have the support that He needed, but yet the Lord's praying. Can we learn a little bit in just the short time we've had to pray like Jesus prayed? To pray for our brethren. To pray for the world. And those who are open to the truth, that we may have an opportunity to live out the gospel before them and lead them to the faith. Whatever your need is, don't lose heart. Don't be discouraged. Jesus would tell his disciples in this context of John, in this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. We can overcome through him. You can have the hope of being with him. That's what he prayed for in that prayer. You want to have that kind of a unity with believers that he is asking for, and you want to work towards that end? You want to be a part of this cause? Then understand that he's not asking you to come into a thing that would take away all your problems in the world. What he is asking for you is for you to be committed in your faith to him, in your love towards people. Help bring more people into faith. Do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for you, and that because he loves you and he wants you to be with him? Then why don't you confess that belief? Turn from your way and be baptized for the remission of your sins. And be determined that you're going to live faithfully until the day you're taken from this earth. And keep your eyes always fixed on that hope. That if he rose from the grave, he's going to raise us. And he's going to bring all the righteous saints who've gone on before us. He's going to bring them with him. I know that. You know how I know that? Because Jesus ain't in that grave. If he can rise from the grave, he can raise us. And he will. If you're a Christian, don't lose sight or heart. Don't be weary in well-doing. Don't be discouraged. Let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in God, believe in Jesus, and know that he's preparing a place. If you need to make correction, or whatever your needs are, you can come up to